What else do you want from me? I'm done. This was the first one. I can't do anymore. All right, everybody, welcome into our Pittsburgh podcast. It feels weird to welcome you into a podcast that's ours, but if I don't do it, who's going to do it? First off, it's been a while, and I've missed you guys, and I've gotten a lot of messages. There was no way that I could respond to all the messages, but I really appreciated it. And part of this, the reason for this podcast was just you guys, and that's why I named it Our Pittsburgh Podcast. I mean, that's what this is. It's ours. So everybody that lives here, everybody that grew up here, everybody that grew up here and then moved away, but Pittsburgh is still your world. Everybody that lives here now, moved here from somewhere else, calls Pittsburgh home. Everybody who's just visited, everybody who loves Pittsburgh from afar. This is our podcast. And that means that we're going to be talking all things Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh sports, Pittsburgh news, Pittsburgh music, Pittsburgh food, Pittsburgh people, places, things, Pittsburgh history. Even if it's not about Pittsburgh, we're going to go ahead and make it about Pittsburgh because that's what we do. I'll give you an example. Last week, the Tiger Woods story broke, and now there's still even parts of that story coming out this week. As soon as that story broke, the very first thing that popped in my head was he could never live in Pittsburgh. This guy can't drive drunk on a flat island. Campbell's Run Road will end him. Like, they will find Tiger in the woods. There's no way that dude could make it up Pig Hill sober. I mean, just imagining Tiger Woods trying to come from the South Hills to go to the North Shore coming out of that tunnel. Full send into the Mon. Like, there's no way. And now the story that's coming out this week is that he doesn't want to have a driver because he doesn't want anybody to know where he is. And immediately I was like, dude, Scotty Eyes will drive him all around town and keep it on the hush. Like, if he wants to have lunch at Cheerleaders, nobody has to know a thing. You know what I mean? The angel hair pasta is to die for. It's understandable. Tiger, we'll keep that low. But that's what we do. You know, everything comes back to us. Pittsburgh people love nothing more than to brag or complain about Pittsburgh to other people from Pittsburgh. We're not even concerned. If you're not from here, we're not trying to sell you what we're talking about. We don't have actual time to hear about what's going on with your sports team or what's going on with your city. We got our hands full. And so, you know, I'm going to have guests on when it makes sense. I mean, obviously, there's so many Pittsburgh people that I love and care about that have a great story to tell and things that I'm fascinated with and passionate about that we'll definitely talk about when it makes sense. But mostly, this is just going to be us talking because this is our podcast. And I feel like you kind of made me do this. So now we're in it together, and I'm going to need your help. You know, everybody that saw me on the street and was like, hey, what are you up to? Like, what are you doing now? Everybody was confused. They were like, so I saw you doing like running videos. Is that what you're doing now? And I'm like, you know, that's one of the things that I'm doing. And we'll get into some of the partnerships that I've formed that have allowed me to do this podcast in episodes to come. But right now, I just kind of want to tell you guys like what this is. And what this is at its heart is really just a creative way for me to learn more about the city that I love, the city that I come from, and to connect with people like you guys. I didn't get to do that as much as I'd like. And so I guess the next thing to do is to sort of just like give you my Pittsburgh origin story. Like just, I mean, if you're familiar with me, then a lot of this will sound familiar. You've heard a lot of this story. But basically, just to give you guys some background on who I am, where I come from, because I feel like everybody has to do that. Like everybody in Pittsburgh has to give you their bona fides up front or you don't trust them. And so for me, I grew up on the rough and tumble streets of Regent Square. And it was actually a great neighborhood, tucked right into Frick Park. Like Frick Park was my backyard growing up. Played in the 14th Ward, went to Waverly Church. Frick Park, if you don't know, is named after Henry Clay Frick. That's Carnegie's Coke dealer. Beautiful park. Loved Lower Frick Park. I mean, that's like the end of Frick Park that I grew up in. But then I went to Allderdice, and we'll get into that in a second. But coming of age at Blue Slide Park, Mac Miller's first album. I mean, we were drinking there. We were drinking Zima, putting a Jolly Rancher in there. And I'm convinced that anybody who like has a seltzer now, like the Truly people, the White Claw people, definitely Zima drinkers. I'd put any amount of money on it. And they were like, what if we just do this carbonated thing, but then like repackage it and put it in a can instead of a stupid bottle? So yeah, grew up in Regent Square, loved it over there. In the Pittsburgh that I grew up in, it was kind of like the Game of Thrones, like whatever quadrant you were from, that's the quadrant you stayed in. So if you're from the East, you stayed in the East. Nobody from the East went north of the Wall. Like Aspinwall, I don't have any idea what's north of Aspinwall. Tarentum, there's probably wildlings up there. I'm not going to Lower Borough. I'm not going to Upper Borough. I'm not going to any of the boroughs. Okay, I'm staying in the East, and that's where I stayed. And I went to middle school at Risenstein Middle School. They called it Rise and Crime. It's basically a jail with teachers. I like to describe that school as the movie Lean on Me if Morgan Freeman never showed up. So like there were metal detectors, there were shootings every weekend. It was really scary to go to school there. But the weird thing is that it was right across the street from a Nabisco factory. So every day I was going to school scared for my life, but it smelled like cookies. To this day, if I smell a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies, it makes me think of gang violence in the early 90s, and that's not right. I don't think I went into a bakery until I was 30. I got to get somebody at some point on this podcast that went to Risenstein, hopefully from Homewood. So if you're out there, you're watching this episode, you're from Homewood, we went to school together at Risenstein, you'll probably remember me as White Bill. Please hit me up. We got to talk, because most of the people that I talk to about Risenstein don't believe me. They straight up don't believe the stories because it was lawless. Like, the people that you'll see like in Times Square or New York or in a park or like a downtown area where there's dudes that are like, yo, who wants some smoke? I got some Coke. Those dudes went to Risenstein. Like that's where they started. And I ended up buying a bag of weed from this dude. I didn't smoke weed. I didn't want weed. But have you ever been like propositioned in a bathroom when there's nobody else around? I bought it and I even tried to smoke it. It was like smoking bang snaps. It was nothing but sticks and seeds. And to this day, if I see any of those guys in a park or anybody, I'm like, I'm not falling for that again, Taylin. You got me back in 91. It was pretty scary, but it was awesome at the same time because I got to be a minority, which I actually think was a blessing. A lot of white people don't ever get to feel that. And I got to feel that because there was one class that was like a scholar class. I wasn't in that class. So it was me, this girl, Jess Howard, and all of Homewood. And that's really where I think like comedy started for me. That was my secret weapon, because if you could cut up and you could joke around and you could laugh, you weren't going to get beat up. And I still had people asking me like what size shoe I wear, which is a terrifying question to be asked as they're looking at your shoes. So I just made sure that my shoes always sucked. And everybody told me like, oh my God, you wait till you get to Allderdice, it's going to be even worse. I actually didn't have that bad of a time at Allderdice. I went to Allderdice. My parents went to Allderdice. My grandparents went to Allderdice. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was actually the first graduating class of Allderdice in like the 30s, and 31 or 32. And I didn't even know this until I looked it up, but Taylor Allderdice was a person. He was like an industrialist that lived in Squirrel Hill. That's who the school is named after. There's plenty of famous alumni. Myron Coate. Bet you didn't know that Myron went to Alderdice. He did. Billy Porter went there, Curtis Martin, and then obviously Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller went there as well. And the dudes that I grew up with that lived in Squirrel Hill, that listened to hip hop, ended up forming Rostrum Records that signed Mac and Wiz. So there's a lot of connections there, a lot of Pittsburgh connections there. Both my mom and dad are both from Greenfield. Their parents are both from Greenfield. Their parents were friends and I think set them up. And that's what I love about Pittsburgh is that the roots run so deep. My grandmother lived in a house that she was born in. She was born in the front room of the house that she ended up raising her family in. Obviously, she moved around for a time period when she was growing up, but then she was back in that house. So my grandmother, my dad, and my kids, because I ended up living there at one point too, all grew up in the same house, 4026 Hozak Street, stone's throw from Pickles, which was a bar that was closed so often that they had a metal garage door. They'd just close that thing, pull it down, chain it. They're like, we're done. And then they'd be like, they'd open it up and they'd be like, totally different game. We're back open. Everything is cool. Fist fight, bars, bottles getting broken everywhere. And then that garage door would come back down. My grandfather opened the door at Kenai's funeral home for 50 years. My grandma was part of the top row rooters for Greenfield's Little League Association. Greenfield Little League Baseball Association. First of all, Greenfield is the first Little League association in Pittsburgh. It's celebrating its 75th season this year. Way back in 1961, my grandmother was what they called a top row rooter, basically predating concession stands. They had like the food stored in a cooler in a garage across the street, and they would sit on the top row and they had whatever sandwiches they made and drinks and everything for the kids. Shout out to Greenfield Baseball. My boy Turk is running that league now, but I don't know if you guys knew this. Mike McCarthy, our new head coach, is from Greenfield. And I laugh, because again, this is Pittsburgh, right? Like as soon as he is announced our coach, there's a Trib article. I think it was Chris Adamski. Everybody from the neighborhood is getting interviewed. And in the title, I think is a quote where they're like, oh, we're beside ourselves with joy. Shout out to Jim Gregg, who actually was coaching baseball, Little League baseball for 60 years. He just retired, absolute Greenfield legend. But he's quoted in this story and immediately they just go down the list of bona fides. And it's just so funny because they're putting everything out there. Like, this is just what we do as Pittsburghers. Like, we got to drop our address. He does his first press conference. He's like 1137 Greenfield Avenue, owned a bar down the run. I mean, like the thing is that honestly, when you sit here and look at it, McCarthy's Pittsburgh cred, like his resume is absolutely rock solid. Listen to this. Family owned a bar down the run. Okay. Grew up on Greenfield Ave. He was a bouncer down Chauncey's. He worked the tolls for PennDOT at the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Okay. Grad assistant at Pitt. His dad was a firefighting cop. This is like Yinzer fan fiction. Like I'm half waiting to hear that he was baptized in Heinz ketchup. Like this is insane. And it's just kind of funny that he ended up in Green Bay because everybody from Greenfield growing up in the 90s had a Packers starter jacket because it was green and it had a big G on it. And I got to be honest with you, like Greenfield growing up was scary. You could not go into that neighborhood without knowing several people. And I used to get a pass because like I had a lot of family there and I had enough friends that would, vouch for me. But at any given time, there were like 50 goons drinking 40s at the light tower at McGee Field with DeLong pullovers, just ready to fight anybody. And the only people that were scarier than them were the dudes from Hazelwood down the hill. There's this neighborhood that I'm definitely going to get into because it's fascinating. It's this area called Scotch Bottom, and it's in Hazelwood. It's the closest to the mill where they all worked at. Like back in the day, like the poorer you were, the closer you lived to the mill. So that was like the toughest, grittiest people lived in Scotch Bottom. It was mostly Scotch immigrants. And so the neighborhood kind of turned over, like it's a mostly black neighborhood now, except for this like 4x4 block radius that stayed white. Scariest white people in Pittsburgh. I challenge anybody to come up with a group that is scarier than these people, okay? You go down there and it's like all of a sudden you're in an episode of The Wire. If you don't know exactly where you're going and who you're going to talk to, you're in trouble. And those dudes used to come up just like one carload of dudes, walk into Pickles and challenge the whole bar, and then the garage door would come back down. The other thing about Greenfield that was always funny to me is that they never knew exactly what to do with me because they liked me, but they didn't know where I was from. They'd be like, Croft, dude, honestly, you were like the coolest dude I know from Squirrel Hill. And I'd be like, yeah, I know, but I'm not from Squirrel Hill though. They'd be like, yeah, you know what I mean? No, you're pretty cool for a Jewish dude. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm not Jewish. And they'd be like, yeah, but you know what I mean, though. And somehow I did. I did know what they meant because I think to everybody from Greenfield in the 90s, if you weren't from Greenfield, you were a Jew from Squirrel Hill. Like that's just how it was. So anyways, I graduate Alderdice, and this is how dumb I am at the time when I graduate. I think, all right, I want to be in movies. I want to do comedy. I want to be a star. So I just move out to Hollywood thinking like that there's a building out there that says Hollywood on it. And I just walk in and go, hey, I'm here to be in the pictures. And then they just put you in stuff. I had no idea what I was doing, fell on my face, ended up staying with a friend of my mom's. And his sister was married to this guy, also from Pittsburgh, that was writing for this show. It was called Malibu CA. It was kind of like a Saved by the Bell show Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, not a show you ever watched. And this guy was making like 16 grand an episode writing for this cheesy show. And I was like, how did you get here? Like, what did you do? And he said, oh, I went to Emerson College. That's, the connections that I had there are really what got me the job out here. So I flew back to Pittsburgh, took an acting class in the basement of the Pittsburgh Playhouse with Jill Wadsworth, who was teaching acting at CMU, but she was doing some summer classes, worked on a monologue, auditioned for and got into Emerson College. And at the time, like Emerson was legit, like for comedy, especially comedy alum, off the charts. Jay Leno, Dennis Leary, David Cross, Laura Keitlinger, Jennifer Coolidge, and now Eliza Schlesinger, Dan Levy, Gareth Reynolds, Henry Winkler, like the Fonz went there. There were so many different big time comedians that went to this school. And then I auditioned for some comedy troupes and I ended up getting into a comedy troupe called This Is Pathetic. And just a funny story about auditioning for comedy troupes. It's not really funny. It's actually like the opposite of funny. I was in Boston going to Emerson College and the auditions for comedy troupes were scheduled for September 11th, 2001. And like all those terrorists flew out of Logan Airport. So Boston was completely shut down. So the school and whoever was in charge of putting those auditions together sends out this mass email to say, hey guys, like, in light of the national tragedy, we're canceling all of the auditions for comedy troupes. And we're going to reschedule for September 12th, 2001. One day later, like, oh yeah, everything will be fine by then. Yeah, sure, no problem. So I go and obviously I fall on my face. I was going to say bomb, but it didn't feel appropriate. Did terrible, like just was not good in any of the auditions. And I was on my way out and there was this all improv comedy troupe that like stopped me beforehand. And they were like, hey, would you come up and audition for us? And I didn't care. So I went up and I was just really loose and it worked out. And it was called This Is Pathetic. And I was in that comedy troupe. And so I was doing like comedy and I ended up in LA after I graduated. One of the reasons that I went to Emerson is they had an LA program. So I ended up out there and everything was going great. I was taking classes at the Improv Olympic and really like getting into some troupes out there and just going to see shows constantly, like totally immersed in comedy, having the best time of my life. And one by one, like all these calamities were happening in my family. You know, people passed away. My mom had a heart attack. My sister got into a car accident. And my family's like, hey, can you come back? So I came back to Pittsburgh and I was like, well, I'll try stand-up. I've never tried stand-up. I think this is like around 2006. There was a open mic at the Pittsburgh Improv. Billy Elmer was hosting. I went up. I tried it. I blacked out. I have no idea what the set was like, but Billy Elmer was like, hey, that didn't suck. Why don't you come back next week? And then I just, started doing stand-up. And I was traveling around doing all these hell gigs. You're all, like I always tell people, when you start doing stand-up, everything is awful. You're doing stand-up in venues that don't have the setup for it. The people there don't want to see it. And you're not good. Every part of the equation is terrible. And so somehow, if you make it through that, you end up a honey badger. Like you can be kicked in the face by anybody. You can take any amount of rejection because it's so hard for so long that if you stick with it, you end up being pretty good. So still performing at the Pittsburgh Improv, and actually Jim Crenn had a showcase there. So I do this showcase. He comes up to me afterwards and he's like, hey man, I really like your Pittsburgh stuff. You should come on the DVE morning show. And I'm like, oh my God. So I come on and like, Randy's really cool. Like before I even go on, Randy's like, hey man, I could see you're a little nervous. Just understand that even if you suck, we're still going to have you back. So just like relax. And that really helped me. And, it went well. And then I came back and then I ended up doing like guy on the street stuff for them for years. Like I ended up going to the furry convention, which I'm still getting emails about. Like I feel like I put myself on a watch list. I ended up dressing up as an elephant one time and like thought I was going to go down there and make fun of everybody and just have a fun time. And all I did was fit in. And it made me so uncomfortable. Like I started getting like a trunk job from a group of foxes. And I was just like, totally weirded out and being like, guys, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm not into this. I'm just doing this for the radio. And they're like, yeah, me too. It's like that scene in There's Something About Mary where he's like, I was just peeing. And then everybody else stands up at the truck stop like, yeah, me too. I was just peeing. Anyways, I'm still doing the road. I'm still doing my thing. And I end up linking up with Steve Byrne, another Pittsburgh guy. And he helped me so much in the beginning of my career. Just, working with him at the Pittsburgh Improv, giving me sets when I don't know if I deserved it. Like, I don't know if I was any good. But he told me like, hey, go audition for this guy, Dave Stroop in Columbus. He has this national showcase. So I went up there. I did this showcase. It went really well. He started booking me. And then as soon as Steve saw that I took the initiative to sort of put myself out there, he called me one day and he was like, hey, man, where are you? And I was like, oh, I'm driving to the Cincinnati Funny Bone. I'm going to open up for Shane Moss, a comic out of Boston. He was like, no, you're not. You're coming to Columbus. You're opening for me this weekend. And so then, Dave Stroop called me, who's this national booker. He books like 15 clubs, or at least he did at the time. I don't know if he's still in the game. Shout out to Dave Stroop, best dude I ever met from Ohio. And so he's like, hey, where are you right now? And I said, oh, I'm driving to Cincinnati. He said, get off in Columbus. Steve wants you to work with him this weekend. Did a weekend with Steve. It was the most fun I had ever had up until that point in comedy. And he came in, he said, hey man, my staff absolutely loved you. Get your calendar out. And he booked me for 15 weeks of work off of that. So Steve Byrne did that for me. And then, we were all traveling around with Steve. He had a bunch of different openers at the time. And then he gets this pilot episode for a show that he's trying to launch on TBS called Sullivan and Son. So he flies all his openers out for the pilot episode. And around this time, DVE is like asking me to come and sit in. But I'm like totally focused on stand-up. Like I'm doing the road. I'm opening for 4 different comedians. At the time, I was opening for Steve Byrne, Burt Kreischer, Jim Brewer, and Brian Callen. And I was signed by Levity Entertainment. And so I'm having like a blast doing stand-up just constantly. I'm on the road almost year round at this point. And DV is like, hey, you know, come and sit in for a week. So I come in and I sit in for a week, and it's really fun. And I'm like back on the road. And they're like, hey, come sit in for another week. And I come and sit in for another week. And I don't know, they were like telling me that there might be an opportunity on the radio, but I just was so focused in stand-up that I wasn't paying attention. So I'm out in LA doing the pilot episode. I'm in the background. I'm eating fake popcorn, drinking fake beers. And another Pittsburgh person, Billy Gardell, is also on the Warner Brothers lot doing Mike and Molly. And so he brings the golf cart over, stops in to say what's up. And at the time, Billy and I, you know, were friendly. You know, he had done a ton for me that I left out, you know, giving me guest spots, sold out shows during his Pittsburgh improv runs, which still to this day, I have never seen anybody kill like Billy Gardell at the Pittsburgh Improv. He took everybody up to the top floor right away and then just kept it there for the entire hour. Unbelievable, like force of nature. I always tell people that Billy Gardell looked and sounded like everybody from Pittsburgh wanted somebody to look and sound like, and the rest of us were just varying degrees of disappointment and disappointing to the Pittsburgh audience. But Billy comes over on the golf cart and he's like, hey, come outside with me for a minute. And he lights up a smoke and we're outside and he goes, hey, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, are you not taking the gig with DVE? And I said, I don't know. I mean, they're saying that I might have an opportunity, but I'm having so much fun doing stand-up. I don't know. And he goes, don't be a jagoff. You go home right now, you sign with DVE and you support your family. And then he tells me this story about how he missed the first couple of years of the Wilster's life, his son, you know, just travel on the road. I don't think people realize how much you're gone when you're doing stand-up. I mean, at my peak, and I wasn't doing anything, I was featuring. I was away for 35 weekends of the year. I mean, that's a ton. And he was just basically coming to me as a Yinzer Jedi with some wisdom to just say, hey, man, like, go back there, support your family. And that is the exact wisdom I needed, because I came back home, I signed a contract with DVE and spent 13 years there. And honestly, like, it was the absolute best. Changed my life, changed my kids' lives. I mean, my girls' lives, like, obviously it was tremendous for me in my career. I had such a blast doing that show and meeting all the people that I got to meet and doing all the fun stuff that we did. But my girls' lives would have been completely different. Like, they wouldn't have grown up in this neighborhood. They wouldn't have gotten the education that they got. They wouldn't have the life that they had. They wouldn't have had me present. Like, I got to be here for their childhood. I got to be their coach. I just got to be around. And that was a gift that I'm endlessly thankful for. But that whole time, you know, I did have like a calling. I just have felt like, man, I kind of had this urge to just get back in the driver's seat. And so that's kind of why I made the jump. And a lot of people have been like, man, that was stupid. Like, you left a comfortable job with a pension for what? You're just going to be like a Yinsfluencer now? And no, that's not what I'm doing. And yes, it might very well prove to be stupid, but I don't have a lot of energy to begin with. And I knew if I waited any longer that there was no way that I was going to take a chance like this and just try to build something of my own. And so that's kind of the spirit that I'm starting this podcast with. And it's funny because one of the things that happened while I was away from you guys was my daughter turned 18. It's not okay. I'm not okay with it. I don't want to talk to you about it. So if we see each other out, please don't ask me about it. I've filed a passage of time complaint with McGee Women's Hospital. I'm still waiting to hear back on that. But one of the things that happened was that I was putting together a post for her on Instagram because, you know, nothing can happen now without us posting about it. And I was a puddle, like the whole entire day, just an absolute puddle, a mess. And it was actually several days. Like I started putting it together and I was beside myself and not with joy. Just couldn't believe how quickly time has passed. But one of the things that I got really prideful about and that I thought might be fun to do with you guys is I really got excited and proud, like Pittsburgh proud of the gallery that I gave this girl, like the Pittsburgh cred, the Pittsburgh cred that I gave this girl. I mean, I got pictures of my kids everywhere. Kennywood, I got them in front of the Thunderbolt with the little Easter egg where Gino's like falling off the Thunderbolt steps and almost dying. And Brian's there like, you all right, Gino? I got them in front of that picture. I have them in front of the Fred Rogers statue. I have them at Pirates games. I have them at Penguins games. I have them at Steelers games. I have them on the field at Acrisure. And I started to think, like, that is another version of Pittsburgh cred. Like, what is your Pittsburgh cred? Like, show me your folder of the Pittsburgh pictures that you think represent Pittsburgh, like, more than anybody. And I have, like, one picture that I have, and it's on the wall here. It's with Gardell. Okay, this, to me, is a 5-star Yinzer pick because it's me, it's Gardell. We're at Kennywood. He's got a Pirates t-shirt on, and I have a 412 t-shirt on. Now, what's not in the picture is that we just drank Turner's tea cartons and stepped on them all and did like Pittsburgh fireworks. And we all just got done eating lunch that was provided by Permanis. Now, if I had a Permanis sandwich in my hand, and if he had a jug in his hand, this is off the charts. We can't even grade this. It's just crowned the best picture of all time. But since we didn't have that in terms of the photographic proof, I know you have a Pittsburgh picture that you think is more Pittsburgh than this, and I want to see it. So if you send it to ourpittsburghpodcast@gmail.com, every week we'll feature a couple, we'll rate a couple, we'll crown a winner every week. And we'll just keep this thing going. Obviously, I'm so excited to be back. It's weird being in front of the camera and not on the radio, but I'm just excited for what this can be. I need your help shaping this. So if there's stories you think I should be talking about, I want to hear from you at ourpittsburghpodcast@gmail.com. If there's something that I'm talking about that you don't like, don't send that to me. You know, maybe just keep that to yourself. But, you know, this episode here is basically just an introduction on what this podcast is, who I am, where I came from, and sort of what I'm hoping it will be down the line. I mean, there's things that I am absolutely positive we're going to talk about. Obviously, the next episode, we're going to talk about the NFL draft. We got the draft coming and we're not ready. And why would we be? I won't speak for you guys. I'll just speak for myself. I haven't been helping as much as I should have. You know, like I haven't really been doing anything. Like I should be down by the North Shore picking the gum off the sidewalk, and I really haven't done anything. I went down there yesterday to get some stuff from the Steelers sideline store, and the entire area around the front of the stadium is gated off like the Capitol after January 6th. I mean, it's all fenced off because they're building the stage down there. So they moved the Steelers store all the way up the street closer to McFadden's. I've never seen a city rally like this and also freak out like this. Like everybody's losing their mind because there's just so much to do. I mean, we have 446 bridges. We can't paint them all before people come here in 3 weeks. The draft is in 21 days. That is insane. So we're going to be talking a lot about the draft. We're going to be talking about opening weekend at PNC Park. We're going to be talking about Easter. We're going to be talking about the Century 3 Mall bulldoze. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff, and I can't wait. We're going to be dropping new episodes every single Tuesday. I hope you smash that subscribe button. I hope you like this podcast. I hope you help shape this podcast. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Can't wait. See you soon. Thank you guys so much for listening to episode 1 of our Pittsburgh podcast presented by Better Call Cy. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share our Pittsburgh podcast with everyone you know, your friends, your family, strangers. Go door to door. This is our podcast, so I'm asking you to do us a solid. And also make sure you send us the most Pittsburgh picture in your phone at ourpittsburghpodcast@gmail.com and show us your Pittsburgh cred. We're going to highlight, rate, and declare champions every Tuesday. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. I'll see you next Tuesday. We'll do this again next Tuesday. Fucking talk about something else next Tuesday. What else do you want from me? I'm done. This was the first one. I can't do anymore. My boy, I've almost lost my voice. I haven't talked in 5 months. Just like, subscribe, and share this thing, or I'll find you. And I'll kill you. I won't kill you, but I'll make you feel bad because I'm going to have to sell my house.
I don't wanna have to sell my house.